Welcome back to the Exhaust Note podcast. I'm Brynn Patton, and that is Marc Corea. I know, Marc, that you do some restoration of Jaguar E-Types. So, what all do you restore?
Mostly what we do is we buy Jaguar E-Types, European sports cars, Porsche 911, Mercedes 280 SLs, any mostly European stuff. And what we do is they're cars that have just been neglected, and we bring them back, upgrade their condition, cosmetically, mechanically, make them great to drive, and really just go through them. I drive them quite a bit myself to make sure everything is right with them, and then we sell them all over the world, mostly in the United States, though.
So these are cars that are not in great condition when you get them?
They're actually in really good. They're in good shape. They just need to. There's been a lot of deferred maintenance on them where people haven't invested the time or the money to, make them mechanically the way I would like to make them, or my next owner would like to make them. And cosmetically, sometimes they need paint. Sometimes you need interior work. But I don't do full restorations to all my cars. It's really a losing battle to do that. I start off with really good cars with great ownership history. I just sold a car that was owned by the same gentleman. I purchased it. He owned it since 1974. We just sold and went through that car. Did a bit of work to upgrade its overall condition.
Okay, so what is the hardest part to find to these cars?
The hardest part, finding the cars is always a challenge. I get offered cars weekly, so that's a challenge. The parts aren't so hard to find, Brynn. You'd be surprised at how easily I can find a lot of the stuff for a Jaguar E-Type. Some of the older Mercedes stuff from the 50s is a little bit more challenging. It's usually the things that you think would be in abundance where it's not really in abundance because it's a weird part. Like, for example, there's a Mercedes 220S. I don't know if you can see it. It's that blue one on the end right there. There's a little reflector that goes in the back, and then there's a rubber piece, and nobody sells it. So you have to have something fabricated. And it's usually the smaller stuff that's hard to find. The older the cars get, when you get into the 50s era cars and 60s and 40s, those become very hard to find parts for because they're just not making them because they're not as popular anymore. But Jaguar E-Type, Porsche 911, Mercedes 230, 250, 280 SL, the Pagoda models, I can find a lot of parts for them pretty easily in the United States too.
Mm. You mentioned earlier that you drive a lot of these cars yourself.
Yes.
How do they differ from other more popular classic cars, like a Ford Mustang, for example?
That's a great question, Brynn. The European sports cars, they have, in my opinion, they're a little bit more finesse. You're dealing with a lot of power in the Mustang, a lot of straight line power where, driving an E-Type or 911, it's more balanced, around turns and lighter, just a different driving experience. Whatever one is preferable to the individual. I don't know. I prefer the European sports car experience, just because of the overall, back road feel. But I'll tell you, I've driven some GT 500s and Shelbys, and they really put you back in the seat, and the torque and the acceleration, it's pretty great as well.
Is it hard to restore the interior of these cars?
I think it's if you have somebody, I outsource the work that I get done. So I should have said that to begin with. So a lot of the stuff is done by other companies, and I have some good interior places that do the work, and as long as they have a template of what they're going to restore and they can get the materials, oftentimes they can buy the materials, the hides, and do it where they don't have to buy an interior kit. And it comes out actually nicer with them buying the hides rather than just buying an interior kit. So, and it goes back to, some of these interiors are so custom, and it takes a little bit longer. It takes a little bit more material. But that would be probably the one thing. As long as you have a template or somebody who's worked on the same types of cars, it's not as challenging as you would think.
Are there any special tools you have to use for these cars?
Yeah, there is. Like we were talking about how I gave you I gave you the knockoff for the Jaguar, and that requires the earlier models require a hammer. You got to hammer the knockoff off, and one day I'll show you. We'll put that knockoff to use that you have, and then there's also an adapter that goes on, and this takes off. This is a center cap of the wheel, and you have to take. That's how you have to hammer that to take that off. So there are some special tools to use some of this. I think as you get into German cars, there's a lot more, because German cars are known for over-engineering. So there are more specific tools that you would have to use for German cars. With British cars, you can get by with some just regular tools. The Mercedes and Porsche, they're not so much forgiving for that.
You've been in the Jaguar scene for a while now, right?
Yeah, I've been doing this for almost 30 years. So I've been Jaguars mostly. I've been my bread and butter, but I started out life as a Porsche guy. I owned a 1981 Porsche SC that my dad was the original owner on. He owned it from 81 to 83 and always regretted selling it. In 2011, I found it for sale, the exact car in Peachtree, Georgia, and bought it back, and since have restored it. So, but I've been around all kinds of sports cars, Mercedes, Corvettes, for 30 years of doing this. And I prefer Jaguar. I like dealing with Jaguars. I love Porsche and Mercedes too, but something about a Jaguar E-Type and my Jaguar E-Type clients, I really enjoy them.
What has changed most in the collector car community in the 30 years you've been in it?
That's a really good question. There's so many things that have changed. When I first started, there was, eBay. eBay was the main source to buy and sell, was where you're selling these cars. We're just doing another podcast, and I was talking to a gentleman about this. There was probably like 6 total cars on eBay, and people realize that's where you can advertise your car. And this is it's moved towards a more social, selling has become more of a social activity and Bring a Trailer. I know you know about that, and other websites where it's become, very much a conversation, and the auctions have become spectator sports also, where people will go to watch and be entertained by, prices and different drama that goes on. So that has changed. Also, the amount of people that work on these cars is dwindling down, where there's not as many specialists involved as there was. The car culture has remained very strong, especially down here. We have a great car culture, but I've noticed just the type of marketing and distribution and ways we sell these cars has changed a lot. The way they change hands, some of it's very similar. Some of them are still, with on-site auctions, but there's been new where I wouldn't have thought in, say, 15 years, 20 years ago, where somebody would auction a car and there would be commentary as the car is being auctioned. I never really thought something where you'd be able to combine chat rooms and auctions would really take off as much. I don't know if anybody really predicted that, and have such a powerful impact on the specialty car market world. So yeah, there's been a lot that has changed, but primarily from a reseller perspective, that's been the big one.
So you're clearly a big Jaguar fan.
Mm-hmm.
What is one element of the E-Type that most people you think would know?
That they would know in terms of, I think that people really, the first thing people notice, I think, on the E-Type is the nose, the big, let me see if I could show you right there. The bonnet right there is they notice that the length. And whenever somebody mentions a Jaguar, they may not be a car person, but they say the nose, they talk about the bonnet being so big. And that's the first thing you see. It's just a big, long hood. And that's a big part of the car. And people, that resonated with a lot of people in terms of when it was new, and they just said, "Oh, I just saw this car with this beautiful nose," and that's probably what a lot of bystanders would say, not people that aren't maybe into cars as much, but just passive people would say about that Jaguar.
What about the Jaguar specifically was so groundbreaking when it came out?
The design, going back to what we just said about the bonnet, the design is really what people absolutely went nuts for. When it first came out and it was introduced at the Geneva Motor Show, I don't think William Lyons, who was the founder of Jaguar, he underestimated how the impression that the car was going to get. He didn't know. I think he liked the car, but he didn't realize it would be where they'd have instant orders for it. And then people drove it and they realized that it just wasn't a rolling piece of art. It was a functional, drivable car with a lot of torque, a lot of fun to drive, very comfortable, very usable car. So the design is really what got people's attention. But once they started the usability of it and realized this is a really great car, that's when it took off.
So it's the practicality of it as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you could use that word for that time, you think of things in terms of the way we look at things now, Brynn, in terms of practical, like cup holders and other things that you're supposed to have in cars. These weren't as practical, but for the time they were. I mean, sports cars were people's primary drivers, so. And there's a lot more that goes along with it, in terms of visceral things, feelings, that it really captured, where it wasn't, I don't know if they were being logical when they wanted to buy these, or just thinking, oh my God, I just want to take this in the English countryside, and most of the orders were from the US. And, actually Frank Sinatra had one on order when they first came out. He fell in love with the car. So yeah, I think there was some practicality. I don't, whether it was practicality, irrationalness, or just emotional. It was probably a mix of all those put together and mixed in, and then they just say, "Oh my God, this is just such a great car."
Do they require maintenance that often?
They do. I mean, like with any, when you're talking about cars that are, with any car that are 60, 70, 50, 60 years old, yeah, they require you take care of your fluids, your gas, your coolant, oil, everything like that. You take care of those things. You could cut down on a lot of maintenance issues, and keep everything lubed the way it's supposed to be. Jaguars, I think they've had a reputation for being unreliable. It's not necessarily that they're unreliable; it's that they came to the U.S. and a lot of people didn't know how to work on them. And a lot of people still don't know how to work on them, and they just put Band-Aids on things. And when you put Band-Aids on things, it typically doesn't fix the problem. So they just have to be gone through by people who know them. They're not overly complicated cars. It's just they just have to be taken care of the way they're supposed to be taken care of, rather than just a couple wires, put together, or just a fuse thrown in, or just so I think they've had a reputation that they didn't deserve, in my opinion.
So they were viewed as unreliable, even though they were not super unreliable?
I think they were viewed, from my experience, is that they were viewed as unreliable because it's just nobody really knew what to do to work on them. Yeah, there wasn't as many people in the US that it was sort of a new technology with these carburetors and wiring and everything. And then, and that sort of grew over time, where, they just developed a reputation. They were, unreliable. They see them by the side of the road, so there must be something wrong with them. And I think that goes across for a lot of European sports cars, because it was just, the technology was so new in the United States that a lot of those mechanics in the United States didn't know they didn't live overseas. Some of them did, when they were overseas in the war and things like that. They tinkered around with British cars. So I think that was part of it, developing that, the unreliable, and then it wasn't, and it wasn't American. So yeah.
Nowadays, is it still hard to find people that know how to work on them?
I have a good network here of people that work on them. The shop that I use mostly for my Jaguars, they're backed up. They have cars coming in from all over the East Coast to work on. So the German cars I can find people to work on. It's still it's more challenging than it used to be because the people who are good typically have a backlog, and because because these other people can't find people to work on their cars. So yeah, you can still find them, and like I said, I have a good network. I have a good painter. I have a good Jag mechanic. I have a good Mercedes mechanic. I have good Porsche mechanics, and I have good interior people, chrome people, all those people, which have been stayed in my network since I've been here. But yeah, it's in some parts of the country. I think because where we are, Brynn, you know this, we have a huge car culture here, and there's a lot of car resources here. I think in other areas of the country, I think it would be a bit more challenging to find people.
So, what got you into cars?
Well, that Porsche 911 that I told you about earlier, that was the car. There's a picture of me when I was 4 years old next to that car. That was the car that started. And my father was really big into cars. He is big into cars. He was a car collector, and I just sort of tagged along with him, and I just fell in love with cars and everything about cars. And it's probably the same with you. Is that it's sort of our peaceful place. I mean, it's my business, but it's also it's a place where you love talking about cars, and you love being around cars, and you sort of. I mean, I know when you were young, you were probably doing the same thing. I was looking at DuPont registries, and other kids were looking at comic books. I was looking at, car books. I was looking at Road and Track and all those other things. I didn't really, nothing wrong with comics. They just didn't do it for me. Cars have always been my passion. They've always been a great source of, I guess, happiness, and also, being around other car people. I've been around a lot of other car people. Some of my best friends they don't even care about cars, but yeah, it started when I was very young, and just going to car shows with my dad, and then learning about cars. I'd go to restoration shops and just sort of hang out and just see what they're working on. So yeah, and it started young for you too, didn't it? When was it for you? How old were you when you first got the car thing?
I was around 5. I went to GameStop and I saw Forza Horizon 2, and that was the moment when everything took off, really.
Really? Okay. Wow. Yeah, and you have. I always remember your abundance of car knowledge. I mean, you would blow away. My friends would just be like, we would be blown away by your car knowledge, and that's great. At 5 years old, that started it for you. And games like that, I mean, where they weren't around when I was younger, and they also integrate older cars as well, right?
Right. Nowadays there are plenty of vintage cars to choose from.
Right. Yeah.
It's a great place to get started as an enthusiast.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, I like to ask this question to all my guests. If you could have any car, what would it be?
Oh, a classic or a new one?
Any car.
Oh man, that's a tough one. Because I personally I like the classic. The classic cars are there's different feels from driving a classic car versus driving a new car. I mean, a new car would probably be a Porsche. No, I say Porsche. Yeah, I don't say Porsche. Porsche 911 GT3 RS touring manual. But the classic cars I loved. I love E-Types obviously, so I can't just say E-Type. But I love 300 SL Roadsters, with a hardtop, with a removable hardtop and Rudge wheels. That would probably be my go-to classic car. I mean, one car that I'd love to have. I've sold a few for clients, but I just love the way they look, the design with the hardtop, the Rudge wheels, and just one of the most beautiful cars I think ever made.
Hmm.
So
Have you ever consigned one of the SLs?
I did. I consigned two. I don't really do a lot. I don't do a lot with consignment now, but earlier on in my career was probably, I think it was around 2004, 2005. I consigned two 300 SL Roadsters, and I also sold two 300 SL Gull Wings. And the Gull Wings with the doors that open like this, and they were very. One of the Gull Wings was one of the most gorgeous ones in the country, and it was fun to consign them. And I had a chance to drive them and push them through their paces. They're wonderful cars. I mean, they sell for 10 times what I sold them for back then. But that was a special time because I walked into our showroom at the time, and there was two 300 SL Roadsters like sitting right in front of my office, and right in the middle was a Gull Wing. And I just, I never, you thought it was great at the time, but now you're just like, I haven't had those 300 SLs in my shop before since. So it was a really special time.
You mentioned that now they're selling for 10 times what they were 20 or so years ago. Why do you think they've appreciated so much?
Well, I might have been over exaggerating a little bit on the Gull Wing. Probably sells for about I over exaggerate a lot. The one Gull Wing I sold for probably sells for like 3 or 4 times. The Roadsters probably sell for, I was exaggerating a bit, 5 times. But why they've gone up, because they're limited production cars. They're not particularly from a standpoint of talking very rare cars like rare Ferraris, but they're a very usable car. It's a very complex car, and it's gone up because SLs are, you think of sports. I mean, SL Sport Light, but you think of sports cars. Mercedes SLs. These were the iconic sports cars. The 300 SL is the ultimate roadster that you can have in a convertible. And that's why just Mercedes, a name and the look of them. That's why they've gone up. They've gone up in value and the 280 SL and the 190 SL. They've all gone up in value because those are the iconic roadsters of the 50s and 60s. And the Gull Wing is the very unique car, and with the doors going up, and they're based on race cars. In fact, the car that sold for the most money was an SLR, and I think it sold for 140 million. And it's actually it's not a Gull. They don't call it Gull Wing. It's called an SLR, but it has the Gull Wing doors actually. So it's just that it's the iconic Mercedes. That is the Mercedes sports car, and that's why it's become as money is 100,000, 200,000. You get to $1 million. It's these cars were probably selling 15 years ago for about 600,000. Now they're over $1 million consistently.
What was it like to drive one compared to a Jaguar?
Well, I will tell you the Jaguar was probably is a better balanced car because you're talking about a 60s technology versus a 50s technology. But the Jaguar E-Type is very similar. It's very stable at high speeds, but a Jaguar could you won't see a 300 SL taking a Jaguar in any kind of vintage race. Maybe you will, but the 300 SL was had a longer wheelbase, just very stable at higher speeds, but very comfortable. And you could push the car, and it just keeps on coming back to you. It's not an overly fast car. It's a phenomenal cruiser. Everything just feels tight on it. It's built like a tank. I mean, if I'm going down back roads, I'd probably prefer an E-Type because E-Types rev a little bit better, and they're more predictable in terms of handling. But it's just a bigger car, so it's not like a pure sports car like a Jaguar E-Type. It's more of a touring car, if that makes sense. I mean, when you want it to deliver, it can deliver on the back roads.
Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you, Mark.
Been a pleasure talking to you, sir. And this is really, really great. And like I said, I gotta send you a picture. I'll send you a picture of you on my my website and sitting in a Jaguar E-Type with your great smile.
Yeah, well, this has been the Exhaust Note Podcast. I'm Brynn Patton, and that is Marc Corea. We'll see
Thanks
you
for
next.
having me.
Yeah.